This is the His and Her Money Show, where we talk about managing money, marriage, and everything in between. Now, here are your hosts, Talaat and Tai McNeely.
Yes, welcome back to another edition of the His and Her Money Show, brought to you by hisandhermoney.com. Today's show is another incredible debt-free story.
We have a young couple.
Young and debtless.
And
couple.
debtless, that's right. They paid off $125,000 in 2 years.
Hold up. What'd you say?
$125,000 in 2 years.
Did you say $125
sure
or
did.
$125,000? Whoa. 2 years?
2 years.
Man, let's see what they're talking about.
All right.
On the line today, we have two very special guests. We are joined by Demetrius and Karla Davis from Young and Debtless.
Hi, Demetrius and Karla. Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you guys?
Hey, we're really
Awesome.
excited about being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys have quite the story. I mean, you guys are some debt eliminators, okay? We're talking about $125,000 destroyed,
In 2 years.
obliterated
Right.
in a 2-year
my gosh.
period.
That's
Woo!
amazing.
But before we jump into the details of your story, can you give us a little background on yourselves and tell our audience who you are?
Sure. So I'm Karla Davis. We've been married for a little over 7 years now. Day job, I'm actually a marketing director for Fashion Fair Cosmetics, and that's kind of my professional background. Grew up in what's called brand marketing. So work for Quaker Oatmeal, Kraft Foods, that sort of thing. Outside of Young and Debtless, we also are just big proponents of just social entrepreneurship. So you'll find me doing a bunch of things related to that.
I'm Demetrius Davis. I am a couple things. We're a bunch of hats. I am first and foremost Karla's husband. And then from there, I'm the co-pastor of City Point Community Church. I am also an educator at Catalyst Maria Charter School, high school on the southwest side. And then just like Karla said, we're social entrepreneurs. We have a couple of endeavors that we put our weight behind and really like to exercise our entrepreneurial muscles.
Awesome. Now, you all were once deep in debt and you successfully paid it all off in just 2 years. Can you tell us, how did you first come to being in debt, and how, well, we already know it's $125,000, but what did it consist of?
Sure. And so funny today, we actually posted our first official blog on this. And that's literally what we called it, is how we got into and paid off $125,000 of debt. And so we told the story, and it goes a bit like this. How we get into it is loving all things shiny, as we like to say. We were always the, new car, wanted to have the new TV, the new whatever was the new. Spent a lot of our energy and money on those types of things. We lived in that space of, I work hard, so I deserve to have all these things, right? And so you get those things often by using other people's money. And so I think that we really took for granted that in order to live this Joneses kind of life, it took taking on so much more debt. So our debt, you can kind of talk to Demetrius, consists of a couple of different things, right?
Yeah, so there were cars. I had a big BMW at the time, and we also had a Lexus SUV at the time that I foolishly bought on the same day, and Karla didn't even know that I was going to buy cars, and came home with like over $50,000 in debt just one night. Just came home with all this debt.
Hold up.
You heard that.
Wow.
Hold up. Let me get this straight. Let's rewind it. Let me hit the rewind button right quick. You bought a BMW and a Lexus on the same day, and, your wife didn't know about it?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Was it a surprise? It must have been a surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Surprise.
Right.
$50,000 debt. Here you go.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure I heard that right. Continue.
And so, man, I cringe thinking about those things now, but absolutely was my mindset. And it was so bad that we lived in a high rise at the time, and we already had a car. We had a car that we shared at the time.
That was paid off, by the way.
And the car was paid off. We had sold a car, the second car that we had, because we were being responsible and realizing that we only really needed one car. And then I pop up and like 6 months later go and buy these two cars, and we already had a car. And so I couldn't even drive the cars home because it was just me and there was 2 cars. So
3 cars, including the one that he went there
including
with.
the one that I went there
Oh,
with. So
man.
I had to call some trusty homeboys to come help me drive these cars home, and then got home and didn't have a place to park all these cars. So shows how much poor planning there was. But there was that debt. There was also some business debt, like some personal credit cards that I was using for business. I ran a tailoring business at the time. There were, these invoices that I would pay off with the credit card. And then when the funds came in, like, just ball out, or use that money for other things. So at that, we had student loan debt, a little bit on each of our sides, and we owed family some money, and all in, it came to about $125,000.
So you guys went on a shopping spree, cars everywhere. We're in the high rise. We're living the good life, right? It seems like all is well. I mean, so what was it? How did you get to the point? What was the wake up that made you say, wow, what have we done? We need to change. We need to get out of debt.
Yeah, well, Karla had given me a book before we got married, and it was called Smart Couples Finish Rich. Mm-hmm. She expressed to me how important it was to her that I read this book before we got married. I didn't read that book. So Karla was already there. I wasn't there. And so there was a day when I was out on my way to shop, but it was the last day to pay my credit card payment on one of my credit cards. This particular card had like an $12,000 balance. And this was the one that I used for a lot of business stuff. So I was going to make the payment on this card. It's the last day. I got to do this. And then I'm just going to go shopping after that. So I drive up in my BMW 745. I park it. I go inside the Bank of America on like near the North Michigan Avenue area. Go inside. I pay the $300 and something, which was the minimum payment amount for that credit card. Paid the money, left out. I park again closer to the stores that I wanted to shop at. And once I went in to shop, I just got this crazy feeling in the pit of my stomach. And it was this realization that I had paid that same $300 and something for the last year and a half. And I still owed around the same amount of money. And I just started feeling like the joke was on me, and that somebody was making a huge come up off of silly mistakes that I was making. And at that time, I just decided I can't shop. I cannot do it. And that night, I kind of had the come to Jesus conversation with Karla, or that I had came to Jesus and just told her that. I think the way that I signaled the shift to her was that I started the conversation by saying, I think I want to sell my car. And for me, like, that car was everything. Like, I wanted a BMW 745 for so long. And I had my own car since I was 16 years old. So that was such a part of my identity, who I was. It was an extension of me. And to say that was big. And she knew right then that there was much more conversation to be had. So she just started asking the right questions, and it started us on our journey.
Karla, how did you feel when he approached you with this new way of thinking and saying, hey, we need to change? What were your thoughts?
So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, there probably was a lot of relief there, to be honest, because I think the other piece of this that we have to be honest about as it relates to marriage and money is we can often get in a place where we don't talk about uncomfortable stuff because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
And it's almost easier than to just, if you don't look at it and I don't look at it, then that's one less thing in our relationship. And I mean, as you all know, I'm sure too, like, money definitely isn't always the sexiest thing to talk about. Right. And so sometimes the strategy is, if I pretend it's not there, if I pretend it's not an issue, it isn't, which we all know is false, right? But it's often the way that we operate. And I think it's even one of those things that as people are looking to get out of debt, I encourage them to recognize is by not dealing with it, you're not not dealing with it. You've just decided that it's going to become a bigger thing as it continues to grow. So at some point you have to decide to deal with it, and it's worth it once you do. But back to kind of, feeling of this relief here. I had grown up kind of knowing better. I use the analogy that sometimes you allow these places where you go against what you know to be like that first apartment that you move into when you get out of college or wherever when you're first by yourself, and you buy all the junk food that your mama never let you eat. Right. Because you just want to see what it's like on the other side of this, even if you know better, right? And after you've eaten 12 days straight of Pop-Tarts, you realize why she didn't let you
right.
Pop-Tarts all the time. But sometimes, you end up having to bump your head as a strategy for growth. And so it was just great to see him being so open to having those conversations and for us to really be willing to push ourselves to being more accountable in our money.
I'm curious because you guys sound, similar to us, to where you all came into a marriage with differing styles of spending habits and so forth. I mean, I didn't go out and buy 2 cars on one day or anything like that.
Would have,
But how prior to this moment where Demetrius had, the epiphany and he realized that he needed to make some changes, like how did you guys make it work, being that you guys saw money in 2 different ways?
For the first couple of years of marriage, also did something that unfortunately I don't recommend, is we kind of lived separate money lives, right? Mm-hmm. Where you've got the whole, okay, we know how much things we need to pay, like as a family, as long as we know that those can be taken care of, you kind of do what you do with your money. And I kind of do what I do with my money, right? And still saw it like that, right? Your money, my money. I put in on the, household things and you put on the household things. And as long as the household stuff is being covered, then we'll keep everything else separate. And I think that that's kind of how we operated and what helped to keep down any issues, because at the end of the day, I really only dealt with my own cash. And so I think that also helped to make it easy to turn a blind eye. But at the same time, it also hindered us from doing anything more significant with the money that we had coming into the household, because it was still being seen very individually.
That's powerful. Now, can you all speak to the mindset that you had to put yourself in order to accomplish this goal of saying, okay, now we're going to do this? Like, did you all have to have this pep talk with each other? Did you have a scripture that you referenced? What was the mindset that you all had to put yourself in to accomplish this?
So on the way to Karla's mom's house for, I want to say like the Christmas holidays, Karla's mom lives in right outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it's close to a 2-hour drive up there. Karla read Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover to me in the car on the ride up there. That's how serious and on the grind we were about this thing. Yeah. And of course, we already had the book, just like so many other people. We already had the book. We already knew that there were strategies out there, and we knew that there were these principles there, but we needed it to be breathed on us afresh. And so we did that. And the thing that just struck me out of that was, as Dave was running down these numbers of, if instead of buying a car every few years and financing it, if instead you always paid cash your entire life, and instead you were actually investing money that you would be spending on a car note, he started talking about how much money a person has, after 30 or 40 years of doing that. And it became very attractive for us to be able to touch those kinds of numbers. So that was really a major part of what pushed us during this thing is realizing what life would look like on the other side of it. And we put on our refrigerator all of our debts that we were paying off, and we put a picture of a gazelle. And that was to remind us that we were going to be like gazelles as we got ourselves out of debt. And it also encouraged us as we saw different debts being scratched off the list. It was a huge encouragement for us to just keep pushing.
Yeah, I think that the other piece too, when you talk about mindset, and this is a little bit of what we talk about now to other folks, is recognizing where we should put the value of stuff. I think that Demetrius coming home and really recognizing the need to and the value of getting rid of his car was a first big step in that, right? Disassociating stuff from the value of me. And I think that that's what we do often, and why we accumulate stuff, as we call it, acquisition or affirmation through acquisition, which is continually affirming yourself with the stuff that you have, That was something that we had to get comfortable being without. We had to get comfortable saying, I'm broke and it's okay. And it doesn't define me because I'm broke at the moment as I'm trying to do something better than be broke. And as long as I can keep it in that mindset, it doesn't have to define me, like where my money is, what I have or don't have. And that helps. And as I'm sure you guys know, helps along the way when you are doing these things that it tends to take to get out of debt, which do kind of put you in this mindset of having a lot less than you're used to having, doing a lot less than you're used to doing, having less to show for yourself and being okay with that.
We're talking with Demetrius and Karla Davis from Young and Debtless. Now, you guys shifted your mindset. You got the picture of the gazelle up. You're focused. You read the Total Money Makeover. It's all in you. You're ready to go. What did you do? What were some practical things from that moment moving forward that you all actually did to eliminate so much debt in such a little period of time?
We can kind of take it through. So we talk about it essentially 4 steps, right? So we talk about that first one, which is the change of mindset. And so that's really that space that you were just asking about, is having to get it in our heads that we have to live very differently in order to make this, to accomplish this and be okay with that. So, those were things where, again, like I said, I had to start telling my friends, yep, can't go out with y'all because I'm broke. Yep, can't buy anything this weekend because I'm broke. And to the point where people would start saying, I'm sorry, Karla, we know you can't come out because you're broke. But hey, as long as you know and I know and everybody's cool with it, then good. You won't ask, or one time you'll ask, I'll say, hey, it does work for me and I'll come out. But getting comfortable with that one. So I think that was a big piece of that front part of mindset. But then again, you can't get out of debt without a budget. Right. And so that was one of those very practical, go down to money 101 things that you have to do is build an actual budget. And 1.0 off of that, or 101A is, and stick to that thing. Right. Don't just put it on a piece of paper and, have all the color coded Excel spreadsheet cells and then put it on the counter, put it up on the shelf. You actually have to work that thing. And so a lot of what we ended up doing to help ourselves work it was put money in different buckets. So we use debit cards, but there would be certain debit cards that only were allowed to have a certain amount of money on them. And not only were they not allowed to have any more than that on it, we took off overdraft protection on those. So if you want to be bold and get in the line and start getting swipe happy, people get embarrassed. You know what I'm saying?
I like that.
So you get to the point where you start walking in that line, checking balances on your phone, just to make sure that when you swipe this thing, it sticks, it fits within the budget. So it was kind of help create a little bit of those fail safes that stop you from going over certain line items in your budget. So that was big. Creating an emergency fund so that we had money to go to just in case stuff happened, so that we didn't have to revert back to credit card. And then really it was starting to look at these debts from the smallest to the largest and paying them off that way. Some people are familiar with what's called the snowball method of paying off debt. And we did it starting from the smallest ones because we got to start crossing off stuff faster, which just psychologically and emotionally was a huge motivator for us.
Here's what inquiring minds want to know. Did you sell the car?
Absolutely. We sold the car. Rest in peace. BMW 745. Sold the car, took a loss, because of course, if you sell a car within, a year of buying it, unless you made a major down payment, you're going to take a loss. And I think that's something that people also wrestle with. But what we factored in was what we were paying every month for the note, what we were paying for the extra parking space, for the insurance, for the fuel. And once we factored all of those things in, we pretty much figured out that after 6 to 8 months, we were going to recoup the money that we were losing by selling the car. And so we sold it and we put some cash with what we got for it in order to pay the bank back. And that was that.
That's great. Now, Karla, we heard you mention that in the beginning of your marriage, you guys were kind of on separate pages. You had your money, he had his money. Now that you guys have come together and decided to pay off this debt, did anything change in regards to how you all handled your money?
Absolutely. I mean, that was one of the first things, is we kind of had to make it our money pot. And you want to talk about the most non-sexy conversations. was probably on the top of it because that's where I even got to see, oh, you have how much on credit card? Oh, you have how many credit cards? Okay. All right.
Right. It got you talking, right?
Exactly. All that stuff that was outside of the household, stuff that we were paying for that I never really had to know about, that was definitely eye-opening. But yeah, we definitely recognized at that point that this was not going to work unless we pooled all funds and made it our money and started to look at our financial situation as a collective, as opposed to just, what he has and what I have.
There's no way that this could have been smooth sailing. It couldn't have been easy. What were some of the obstacles that you all had to fight through in order to become debt free?
Definitely like the being strict with managing the amount of money that we had to spend. I think when we first started this new budget to prepare to get ourselves out of debt, I might have had $200 in discretionary spending per month that I was allowed. And that is just horrible. I mean, my gym membership's $40. So we're talking about if I want to just eat lunch in the streets, go to a bar with some friends, I got $200, man. I had like $8 a day or something crazy like that I was able to spend. Probably less than that, probably like $6 a day. But that was a big deal. Like try attempting to stay fly shopping and you only got $200. But that was a major obstacle, like getting over having this small amount of money to work with. And it got to like after a few months where we had another conversation like, hey, this $200 ain't gonna work. And so we increased it a little bit. And I think that's a major key is you have to be realistic with your budgeting or you won't stick to it. You have to be realistic. So you have to sacrifice, but you also have to be realistic. You can't say we're only going to eat ramen noodles for the next 6 months so that we can get out of debt.
Now, how do you all feel now being debt-free compared to when you were deep in debt? Was it all worth it?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. I mean, just from a couple of reasons. I mean, I think you also, first and foremost, like we talk about how being free from debt and not having debt doesn't now mean that you are rich, and that like you now can go buy yachts and all these kinds of things. But what it has done for us, and we've even seen it pretty recently with my job change, is it's given us options. I've, like I said, worked in brand management, which is, marketing kind of role for most of my career, have done, pretty well. So I've been in pretty high level roles at this point. But like I got to the point where I actually hated my job. Like I was no longer getting anything out of where I was. It wasn't a good fit. It was a horrible commute. And I was able to get the job I have, but take a pretty significant pay cut for it. And then we were still okay, right? In some situations, you'll get to where you need every drop of the money that comes into your house, that you're just chained to whatever your situation is. And I'm just so thankful that we're in a place now where that was an option for me. It was an option for us to take a pay cut and for me to go and do something that was more exciting for me and more aligned with what I wanted to do. And I wasn't shut out of that because it didn't pay me as much. So that's just been a great feeling and a great benefit of now being out of debt.
What type of impact has this process had on your marriage?
Very, very positively. I think one of the things that places the biggest strain on marriage is finance. So for the brothers that are listening out there, if you want to like turn up the heat in the romance department with your marriage, man, get that money right.
Preach.
That is sexier than going to the gym and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's
And I mean,
awesome.
and it's been great too, because like we had to have very real conversations with each other during this process. And I think that that's also helped us grow closer, because there's nothing like being able to battle through something together and coming out strong on the other end, right? And even being willing to have some of these very truthful conversations with each other and hold each other accountable in ways you might not have had to before, and still being able to grow and respect each other through it as well. So I think that part has definitely helped.
That's true. And there's nothing to hide.
Exactly.
I mean, everything's out there on the table and you're as transparent as you can be. So therefore, you have to grow closer together.
Yep.
That's so true. Now, to the person or the couple that's listening right now who feel there's no hope or no real way for them to become debt free, what would you guys say to them?
First and foremost, that there is. We are walking and living proof of it. And we didn't do this out of any kind of, $29.99 plan that you see at midnight on an infomercial. Like, it just takes some hard work and commitment, but it's not, the elements of it aren't rocket science. Like, they're simple, but they're still, they can be difficult, right? It's a simple thing to do. It just takes some focus to get it done, but it's not impossible. Like, we were not on the road and just needed a little push. We weren't even close to the road, and we were able to figure this out. So I feel like anyone that is even remotely thinking about doing this to just know that it's very possible for them as well.
Can you guys tell us a little bit about the mission of your site, Young and Debtless?
Yeah, so Young and Debtless is an organization that we said from the start of our journey to gain debt freedom that we wanted to start an organization that helped other people do the same things. YoungandDebtless.org is exactly the web presence of that organization. And so what you'll find on that website are links to resources that people can use to build budgets, to see videos on how to execute the debt snowball method. They can read up on our story, understand how we did it, and also connect with us both through our mailing list or through direct contact to ask us personal questions and to get support along the journey.
We'll make sure that we have their link in the show notes. Now, if people wanted to stay in touch with you guys, are you all on social media? Can they find you there?
Yep, you sure can. So Twitter, we are Young Debtless. So all one word, Young Debtless. On Facebook, we are Young and Debtless, and that's where you can find us. And of course, as he said, it's YoungandDebtless.org.
We've been talking with Demetrius and Karla Davis from YoungandDebtless.org. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Thank you all so much.
Man, another debt-free story, man.
I love how Karla brought out the fact that they both were on two different financial, planes in regards to handling their mony. In the beginning.
They had two separate lives when it came to their money.
His money, her money. And
they should start a website.
Our website, His and Her Money? They have YoungandDebtless.org. However, but I love how she mentioned that when they decided to, get out of debt, they came together financially and they had to be transparent with each other. They had to know what type of debt they had, but it also brought them closer. So it shows you that coming together, being on one accord, financially you can make strides and get out of debt. I believe that played a factor in them paying off all this debt in 2 years now.
I mean, think about the incredible mindset shift that had to happen. I mean, they went from purchasing 2 cars in one day
to selling
to downsizing their family to operate off one vehicle and destroying their debt. I mean, trust me, that had to be a big change in thinking. And I think that's where it starts.
But they got tired of being sick and tired.
Absolutely. And I don't think that you can become debt-free until you reach that point.
That's what we keep telling you guys. You have to get to the point where you're saying enough is enough. I'm not going to keep, doing this. This is crazy.
Listen, guys, it's worth it in the end. It's worth it.
Well, hey,
if you got to sell the car, whatever change needs to take place, let's start today.
You heard them say it was all worth it.
So that does it for this edition of the His and Her Money Show.
Don't forget to visit us over at our website at hisandhermoney.com.
Here it is. No matter where you are on the road to financial freedom, the key is to start now
and finish strong.
Thanks for tuning in to the His and Her Money Show. For more information on how to win with your finances, be sure to visit www.hisandhermoney.com.